Welcome to DeWitt and Dunn Financial Services with your host, Cathy DeWitt Dunn.
I'm a soul man. I'm a soul man. Play it, Steve.
And welcome back. I'm Cathy DeWitt Dunn along with Steve Ringo. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's hard to believe. It's hard to believe. This is the 41st anniversary of John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd's first appearance as the Blues Brothers. Oh my gosh, on Saturday Night Live. Their version of Soul Man reached 14 on the charts, helping to establish the comic duo as a legitimate music act. Said no one ever. But as the engineer pointed out to us today, Sean, he's like, well, they charted. And there you have it. So, wow, that's hard to believe. The 41st anniversary. Right. Well, for everybody that's listening in today, yes, we replayed our radio show last week. I had a lot of people comment on that. I happened to be in Washington, D.C. for a period of about, I guess it was like 6 days. Had met with a couple of interesting people and saw a few people. So we're going to talk about that a little bit later on our show. But if you'd like to see ahead of time, you could log on to DeWitt and Dunn, and right in the middle of our homepage, there's a button that you could click to see some of the photos that we're going to talk about a little bit later. So I'm glad that we're here this wonderful weekend. Boy, we had some rough weather in the area this past week.
We definitely did, and I'm glad that the weather is behind us. Taxes are behind us, and hopefully these allergies are going to be behind us.
I hope. And also Easter weekend. How about that?
Right.
Everybody's going to be out there doing the Easter egg hunts with their children, and I think my children will still want to do the Easter egg hunt looking for money in the eggs. But it's going to be a great show. We're glad that you're with us. So, yeah, sorry about having to repeat the show, but duty called, especially being out there with Tucker out in at Fox News with him.
I enjoyed the videos that you took and the stories that you told, and I'm looking forward to sharing that with the listeners later on in today's show. But talking about your kids real quick, I mean, now that you have income-producing offspring, they still expect money in the eggs?
Yes, and that is what a true IPO is, income-producing offspring. So if anyone ever told you anything different, IPO stands for income-producing offspring. I actually put that in our Christmas card several times. But
That's
yeah,
awesome.
they still kids will be kids, right?
Right.
So, yeah, they still want the money.
Well, and it's good to be able to provide for them, so.
Not very much.
$1 at a time.
Yeah.
Sorry, Blake.
Yeah, they have jobs. That's the good news, right? But you're working on that with your kids, but they're doing well, too, in school.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They are.
And
Time is flying by. Summer's about to be here, so.
Oh, my gosh, I can't even fathom that.
know.
And STAR testing is behind all the kids.
Behind,
oh, my gosh.
Pass that with flying colors, on to the next thing.
Yeah, well, you know what? We are going to talk today about a lot of people that we've been working with and helping and putting a plan in place and showing them what their retirement income is going to look like, right? That's the biggest challenge for the investor. When do you retire? When can you retire? Let's take a look at what that is going to, your portfolio, what that's going to generate in income later down the road. And we've had a couple of people, actually, there's one specific client that's been working for 3 months on pulling the trigger. And he came in and he filled out the paperwork. And we know who you are. And I'll just use first name, Ricky. Your retirement's right around the corner and your wife is happy. And we're glad that we were able to help you with all that paperwork. And his retirement is coming up very soon.
It's amazing how many people have been in, especially with the lead up to tax time, because normally it's a tiny bit slower of a time for us around the office because people are finalizing their taxes and waiting till last minute. But this past year has just been so busy, and it goes back to all the volatility that we've had almost 15 months ago, starting in January 2018. And we've just seen a lot of volatility in 2018 and also into 2019. And people that are getting closer to retirement just don't want to take that risk anymore. So there are strategies out there that we're going to talk about on today's show that give us the ability to make good money when the market's moving in a positive direction, but protect us on the downside.
Absolutely. I also want to just say that there's a lot of people that filed extensions this year because of all the tax law changes. And we have a webinar on our website at DeWitt and Dunn where I broke down all of the changes with the new Trump tax plan. And it is very interesting when you take a look at it. It's a 2-part tax webinar. The second part for me is the most interesting because if you're going to just take the standard deduction or if you want to itemize, you might want to look at, I call it LEAP tax planning, right? So doing one thing this year and then next year combining contributions and other things, so then you can get the best of all worlds. So take the standard deduction this year and perhaps next year itemize. So part 2 of that webinar is really eye-opening.
Well, Cathy, we've had so much feedback because in the in the webinar that you've done, it's like tax, right? It's the tax leapfrogging, right?
Yes.
So it's cute because you've got some little froggies in there that are jumping over each other, and it's definitely a great concept for maximizing your tax liability and reducing it.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the big things because a lot of people are still just shaking their heads, right? So so that webinar, to produce it, go through compliance and everything, it was pretty interesting, but it has a lot of great information. So you can find that at DeWittandDunn.com and register to attend our webinar. So it's pretty outstanding. But on the other hand, for people that have filed their taxes, they're looking for income, looking to have protection. I know this past week we had a couple of days, the market's just kind of hanging in there. It's not really doing anything. And I love all these people that are just chasing that last little bit of return. And you know exactly what's going to happen to you. You know you need to do something. You're chasing that last 2, 3, 4%. Is it really worth the risk?
It's not, especially when there's strategies out there that you can move your money into that will allow you to participate and make that last 2, 3% in the event that that's all that's left in this next bull run.
It's interesting. So there was a survey actually that was produced by Prudential and says that everybody's worrying about retirement. It actually says anxiety is a common reaction when money is brought up, particularly when the conversation is talking about your future and your future income. And that's just horrible. Like, to have anxiety about what's going to happen later down the road, that's the reason why you have to have a plan in place, whether it's a 1, 5, or 10-year plan, being able to count on your money. So the people that have the anxiety are the people that they don't have a plan in place.
Right.
And so we can help you today. Steve, let's talk a little bit about, you just happened to have a gentleman come in that was looking for lifetime income that he cannot outlive,
right,
and income that's guaranteed. Let's talk about that.
Right. So we've got a young 58-year-old that had...
I like the way you say that.
Yeah, young 58-year-old. He's
looking
got
good.
over $2 million in his IRA, but he was looking at producing a guaranteed lifetime income stream on about $1 million of it. So $1 million right off the bat gets a 7% bonus, so that $1 million turns into $1,070,000. And then it begins compounded growth each year at 7.5%. So the $1 million in 10 years actually turned into $2.2 million. But the point of this particular strategy is to produce that lifetime income stream, which that income at the 10th year would be over $134,000. So almost $135,000 guaranteed worst case scenario for a strategy that doesn't matter what happens in the market. You know exactly what you're going to get. And
that's an awesome plan. And let me just, before I give out our phone number, let me tell you a little bit about what Suze Orman has to say about compounding interest. It's one of the greatest inventions in history, and it's something called compounding interest. It was pretty interesting. She did a piece for CNBC, and what I'd like to do is just kind of play that, because that's the reason why when you have compounding interest, how your money can grow so quickly. So the numbers that Steve gave out to you, now you'll understand how that could happen inside of your portfolio.
Do you know that if you put $100 a month right now into a Roth IRA, you're 25 years of age, you do it until you are 65, do you know with average market returns, again, you could probably have $1 million, and that's on $100 a month. But you wait till you're 35, you think, what's the difference? $100 a month, $1,200 a year for 10 years is only $12,000. I'll start then. If you started then, you would have only $300,000 when you were 65. You just blew $700,000.
And compounding interest and that income plan is just the key to success. So if you would like to give us a call today, we have offices, and we have new renovated offices in Dallas, and we have an office in Fort Worth and in Houston, Texas. The number to reach us today is 972-473-4700. Again, that's 972-473-4700. If you have a 401k plan that you're contributing to and you're over the age of 59 and a half, did you know you could roll those funds over? It's a non-taxable event, and you can still contribute to your 401k plan and get the company match. That's free money. But just taking control of that money, getting rid of all those extra fees, which Until you have it, until you Google it and you look at it, you have no idea what you're paying on fees on that. If you have a 401k to previous employer, we could help you with that.